Last Word on Gaming. We're here with the one and only Ty Christian. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. I am mostly rested up after the recent festival, but all the knots in the back are like slowly releasing. I think I'm gonna have to go to another couple massage places to have them just beat the crap out of me, and hopefully they'll be gone by then.
You had a lot of time on your feet last weekend, as we can imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah. Organizing and running the festival day of show is it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, and there's a lot of stressors involved. But luckily, I am surrounded by a lot of very amazing, super competent friends and volunteers and people who help make the fest actually go. I'm the face of the festival, but the heart of the festival is definitely the volunteers, and I could absolutely not do it without the help of my friends and my volunteers. In fact, I tried a couple of years ago. When Mad Power first started up, I was like running around doing everything myself. I learned very quickly that can't do that and then put on an effective performance. It's just not going to work. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so we're going to dive so much more into your music and Mad with Power Festival here in a minute. And for those that don't know, Ty is a man of so many talents. Not only is he a huge gamer, he is the front man for an awesome band called Lords of the Trident. And he also, as we kind of alluded to, created a Mad with Power Festival. And we're going to dive into all of that. But what really struck me, not only being a huge fan of power metal, but being a huge gamer, and we can see your background. You are obviously got an awesome gaming setup there. Um, there's so many video game influences in what you do, but kind of take me back to day one. Tell me your gaming story. Where did it start for you?
Oh boy. I you know I grew up in a house that was roughly like 2 blocks away from a local mall, in the 80s and 90s. And so we had an arcade, specifically in Aladdin's Castle, in that mall. And I was essentially more or less raised by that arcade. I would just take my bike and hop on the trail and make it to the mall, within 5 minutes, and I'd be playing whatever game it just came out that week. I had every single birthday party at that Aladdin's Castle until I was like, I want to say like 15, maybe. Um, but yeah, I basically lived and breathed that arcade for a long time. And then when I was 4, my grandparents bought me a Nintendo Entertainment System, the original, and and that was the end of that basically. I was I just kept I got Nintendo Power subscription, and I was also into Sega, and also into especially into Sega CD. I loved the acting of Sega CD. And Interestingly, my parents were very much of the mindset of like, well, if you want something, you're gonna have to save up your money for it. And it's like, I got $5 a week allowance. So buying a new video game system back then was difficult. So I usually would get like older systems, that were on sale after the new system came out, or my friends would sort of trade up, to me. So the last system that I bought myself until I was, out away at college and fully fledged adult and all that sort of stuff was actually a PlayStation 1, and I didn't have any systems whatsoever. I missed the N64, I missed the Xbox, I missed the PS2, PS3, PS4. I actually just got a PS5 a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh my god, I have all these games to play. Holy crap. But the my heart, of liking, the games has always kind of been in the more retro, and on the PC side of things. I was always a big PC gamer, alongside of, like Nintendo and Sega back in the day. I fell into PC gaming pretty hard because I got we got a computer, and when I was in like 1996. My parents, I convinced my parents to buy like the most souped up computer. Now, I'm about to blow some minds here. So everybody, I hope everybody's sitting down when they hear this. It was 1996. I had a Pentium 200 megahertz processor, baby. I had a 3.2 gigabyte hard drive in 1996. And I was like, I am never, ever going to fill this thing up. It is going to be This is I was so excited. If that would have gotten me any nerd points, any brownie points back then, like I was milking that for all it was worth. So I was doing PC gaming long before anybody else in my friend circle was doing that. So I fell in pretty hard on that. I'm still pretty heavy PC gamer, although I love all consoles equally. And as you can tell from my background, I built a pinball machine, I built a couple arcade machines. I love a lot of the weird, esoteric, rare arcade machines that are out there. I love emulating them. I love like showing people, these cool old games that they only 500 or so were made, and so I get a big kick out of that, and I'm always my wife and I we go over to Japan every so often, and I'm always on the hunt for like the new weird game in Japan, like the table flipping simulator. I loved that in Japan, and yeah, there's so many amazing arcade games out there that are just so fun to play. So yeah, so I guess that's in a nutshell. It's like I fell in deep into an arcade and never came out.
That's awesome. I have to ask you kind of a sidebar question because you talk so much about that first souped up PC, and now you look at what's coming out today. What's your current, like, what processor and how many gigabytes of memory is on your current gaming computer,
Oh,
just for
dude, I got
comparison?
so like I am I've got a for video card. I think I got a 3080 in here. And this machine is not only my gaming rig, but I do all of my video editing
Mhm.
on here. So I shoot now on a cinema camera, and I shoot in raw 4K. So it's like gigantic file sizes. So I have on this machine locally, I have 32 terabytes of storage just on this machine.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and I think I've got 128 gigs of RAM, and I forget what the processor is, but it's something ridiculous. It's something stupid. So it's like an i9, the biggest they got. So yeah, this thing could play all the games. You could take the original Crisis and turn it up to Ultra, and this thing will not even smoke. It's perfect.
That
It's
was my
beautiful.
next question for you is how well does the first Crisis run on that machine?
Oh, dude, you can crank it all the way up. Put all the anti-aliasing on it. It's like it's got it, no problem.
Oh my God, that is amazing. Yeah, so you talked a lot about arcade games that kind of grabbed your attention early on, and some of the PS1. I mean, what a console to start out with. But what are some early games that kind of grabbed your attention based on the T-shirt I'm wearing and a lot of the art I saw over this past weekend? I'm guessing I know one of them.
Yeah, my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VI, easily. That is a game that captivated me to no end. I actually bought it at a flea market way out in the sticks. It was like a farmer's market that was selling fruit and vegetables, and then one guy had bought a pallet of Super Nintendo games from like some drunk dude, and it was Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. And I didn't know either of these games. And I asked the guy, I was like, which one do you think is better? And he's like, oh, go with 3. So I was like, okay.
All right.
And I don't remember what his name was. I don't remember what he looked like, but shout out to that guy because I had the experience of a lifetime playing that. That was a game that the story connected with me so hard, and the music, especially the music, just was so moving and so amazing that it was like I must have been 11 or 12 or something when I was playing that. And the opera scene in Final Fantasy 3 was so like heavy and awesome. I actually like scored it out for piano. I was taking piano lessons at the time, and I played it for a recital. Um,
That's
that's how
awesome.
that's how hardcore I was into that game. So like yeah, that game especially was like a turning point in the whole like games are art kind of mentality, right? Because before it was like, oh, these are fun, these are fun, these are fun. And then it was like that game hit you so hard in the feels, and like, oh my God. So yeah, I love that game to death. That's my favorite game of all time. Other than that, there is a my my white whale, the game
All
that I
right.
would mortgage my house to own. I'm 100% serious. Uh there is a game. It was an arcade game. It was an old arcade game. Came out in like I want to say '94. Taito put it out. It was called Sonic Blast Man,
Okay.
and it was a punching simulator. It was one of those, like measures how hard you
Right.
punches. But it was an early prototype, and it looked like a big pinball table, and it had a TV screen on the top, and it had like one of those arms that like brrr, came up and you punched it, and it would measure your pounds per square inch, and you had 3 chances, and you had to get over a certain pounds per square inch. So it was released in Japan, big hit, came to America, big hit, but it said on the instructions in very big bold letters, you must wear the punching glove. You must wear the punching glove. Do not hit it without the punching glove. And of course, a bunch of Americans were like, I don't need no goddamn punching glove. And so they all broke their wrist and they sued Taito.
Oh my God.
So Taito, their reaction to this was like, okay, no more, like take it off of the US market, no more. We are, and they sent out a memo to every arcade that had this. They said, destroy it. You are hereby
Oh
ordered to
wait.
destroy it. Not put it away, not take it off the shelf, destroy it. So to my knowledge, I've only ever seen one Sonic Blast Man cabinet that is still intact in America. It was in New Jersey, and I was about to like hitch up a trailer to go get it when somebody bought it out from under me. It wasn't even sure if it was working or not. Now in Japan, Sonic Blastman has like they've got like 17 versions of Sonic Blastman. But like if I could ever find an original US version Sonic Blastman, I would pay any amount of money for that. It would, that's my white whale. Um, so there's that one. I'd say other than that, God, there's so many arcade games that come to mind that are just amazing. Sunset Riders, Simpsons, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. One of the more rare ones that I really loved is the the Sega hologram system had a one called Time Traveler, and it was absolutely ridiculously stupid. It was a really bad game, but the whole concept of it was it actually like the the console or the arcade cabinet that was there was on a like concave disc of like mirrors,
Oh,
so
okay.
it projected a hologram that you could like put your hand through, and you could and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. A Galloping Ghost Arcade in Chicago has one.
Okay.
So I got to play one like I haven't played one in like 20 years. And I was reminded how bad the game was, but how cool, how amazing it was. It was just incredible to see that tech, back in the day.
That's like something out of Star Wars for that time. You're like, what is this?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think as the years go on, I think Half-Life was obviously a big one for me. I'm still a big first person shooter fan, but I like narrative first person shooters. I'm not really into like multiplayer at
That's
all.
fair.
So I loved Half-Life. I put like 300 hours into Morrowind. I
Wow,
put
okay.
even more time into Skyrim and Oblivion. Um, yeah, it was a good. So I would say those are some of the main ones. Obviously, if you want to talk about you know in juxtaposition to like Final Fantasy 3, I'm also a big Chrono Trigger fan. Castlevania. I mean, I could sit here and name games that like have touched me deeply as a human for many hours, probably.
That's awesome. And so I got to ask, you just got a PS5. Have you grabbed the new Final Fantasy? Have you dived into that world yet?
No, no, I haven't. I have been going through the backlog of games that like I should have played years
There.
ago. And there's a game that just came out today that I have been I have had to like be like, no, no, you will not buy it.
You will not
No.
touch it.
There's Blasphemous 2 came out
Yeah.
today, and I loved Blasphemous 1. I think Blasphemous 1 was one of my, I would probably put it in top 20 games of the last 20 years. Specifically for me, I grew up. My parents kind of forced me into a Catholic grade in middle school,
Yeah.
so I'm very very I'm in love with like Catholic-esque sort of religious figures that are like what's the word? Like that are like sort of weird,
Mhm.
twists on Catholicism, on religion, on the weird kind of almost medieval aspects of some of the religious stuff, like like what is it, flagging or whipping yourself. I can't remember. My,
Mhm.
my brain my brain is broken from out of power and I can't speak words.
Right. I know what you
Uh,
mean though, kind of like the lashing and
the
the.
lashing, self-flagellation, that's what it is.
Mhm.
But like all of those like weird religious like idolatry sort of
Mhm.
things. I love that shit. I love it. And so I just ate, and Metroidvanias. I mean, like those are incredible. So I ate Blasphemous up. I played the crap out of that, and I cannot wait to start Blasphemous 2. But I have to finish all my Mad Power stuff first. I have
That's
so much like work to do. And once I finish that, then it's gonna be Blasphemous time.
That's fair. One more quick gaming question before we start segueing into some of the other awesome art that you're involved with. So I'm just kind of curious your take on these two games if you've had a chance to play them yet, because there's been a lot of talk around them. Being a huge Final Fantasy fan, have you toyed with the remake of Seven, or I should say, I guess part one of the remake of Seven? And if so, how what were your thoughts on it?
So I bought it, and I'm waiting to play it with my wife.
Fair.
Uh, so she is currently like she's divorced me and her new husband is Link right now.
Okay.
So we're in this kind of like weird Mormon marriage right now where she's married to me but also married to Link, and so I might see her in a couple of months once she finally finishes that game. But yeah, I'm waiting to play it with her. So
I'm curious. You'll have to keep us updated once you get through that, because I'm just curious what your thoughts will be since you have such a cinematography, guided mind and such kind of like the score and everything. I'm really curious to see what your thoughts will be once your wife's time with Link has wrapped up and you're able to jump into that.
yep.
Have you, and anybody who has read anything I've written on the website in the past year knows I have some interesting takes on this. Have you dived into Cyberpunk 2077 at all?
Yeah, actually, that was a game that we played together. And we bought it right when it came out, and
Okay.
had the most had the most hilarious time with it. It was I would go and replay it now. I still liked it a lot. I enjoyed the experience. I liked the story. The aesthetic was very cool. And it ticked all of the boxes for me because it was like an RPG
Mhm.
FPS, and that's kind of like that's games like Stalker. I love that shit. I love FPS, open world, RPG, gunplay, all that sort of that those games I could play for hours and years. The bugs, they were there. They were very much there, and they were hilarious. So
Some of them were just great.
we had one of the best bugs we experienced was there was a flashback where I think it was Keanu Reeves' character
Mhm.
was playing a guitar, and this big like song was playing, and it was this big heavy riff, and um after the cutscene was done, that song continued for the next 3.5 hours
Oh my God.
through all of the rest of the cutscenes, and there was like a couple of like dramatic deaths where it's like, no, no, not her, and we were cracking up so bad. So it was I enjoyed Cyberpunk. I might go back to it. I might play it again now that it's all fixed. But I think it was tainted a bit in the original release for me. Yeah.
I think a lot of people share that feeling with you. And I've written a couple articles about why it deserves a second chance on what now that the bugs have mostly been hammered out. There's still some, but it's much more playable now than it was in December of 2020. But
Sure, sure.
I've definitely caught some flack for saying it deserves a second chance. So I'm glad to hear you're willing to give that a second chance. Like you said, with how much you appreciate good stories, I feel like the way that game pans out, depending on your choices, that's one that kind of like that's one that after I put down the controller, I'm still thinking, well, what if I would have done this? What if I would
Yeah.
have gone this route? But speaking of going other routes, other than just gaming, you've got some pretty awesome stuff you're involved in. So let's talk a little bit about your band. And like I said in the beginning, Lords of the Trident. You're also known as Fang von Wolfenstein.
Rappenstein, close
Right,
enough.
that's all right. Yes,
I like the gaming tie in there though. That's good.
yeah. I mean, I had to do it, you know. So what? Yeah, how did the crossover for gaming and songwriting start for you? Did that start at? I mean, you just talked about doing a Final Fantasy piano recital in elementary school, so that seems like it was a very early start. But how did that crossover start for you?
Yeah, I think that, for the genre that we play for power metal, the default is very much like swords and sorcery, and a lot of the settings of your typical, your video games, D&D, all that sort of nerdy stuff. So it's not necessarily that we always try to tie in video game themes and tropes and that kind of stuff, but it's just like via osmosis. It's just kind of what happens. And we do have some songs that we set out specifically that are about video games. In fact, we're actually coming out with an EP. We're finishing it up. We're just about done writing it. We're going to record it probably in the next month or so. That we're like tentatively calling it the VG EP because all the songs are about video games. Um,
Okay.
so good timing on the interview, I guess. But yeah, we don't always set out to make songs about video games, but the ideas that kind of come from the stories that we interact with, work their way into our brains in a way that just kind of naturally comes out in the lyrics, naturally comes out in the way that we write songs. I think, I like to, for creative people, we always talk about this whole like pouring out the jug idea. Like when you create, you've got this jug of ideas and effort and creativity, and you're pouring it out, and you're like filling up cups, or you're doing whatever, you're pouring it out on the ground sometimes. And occasionally, everyone has to stop and refill the jug. And how a lot of people, myself included, do that is by like relaxing, experiencing stories, experiencing video games, experiencing movies. And a lot of the stuff that I like to ingest is a lot more on the swords and sorcery side, and a lot more on the fantastical side of things. And so I think the stuff that you are surrounded by, and the stuff that you are influenced by, and the stuff that you throw into your jug, right, is the stuff that's gonna all mix together, and it's what's gonna come out. So I think that's why a lot of our songs, kind of carry those tropes or are directly referencing specific games. What I will say to that also, when we write a song that references a specific game, I try my best not to be super in your face about it.
Okay. Yeah, makes
So
sense.
like there are some bands out there who have, there's a number I can think of, who've like written songs that specifically like say the title of the game in the song, you know um and that is a little too on the nose for me, like with Figaro, our song about Final Fantasy VI. We never specifically call out any other than the title of the track, right, which could be
Right.
interpreted in many different ways. We never really call out any specific characters. We never really call out any specific things from the game. It's more like the track was designed to be like an idea, a think piece of like, okay, the game is over, the war has been won, you're picking up the pieces. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What happens when you recollect on what happened inside of the story of the game? This is the like the unspoken, unwritten epilogue, right, to the game's ending, essentially, that kind of I thought of, and the Baron thought of, and we kind of put it together. So
That's
we try to do stuff like that. We try to do stuff where we build upon or build with the world that other people have created, but not necessarily like specifically be like, and then like if we were writing a Half-Life song, we wouldn't be like, and then you pick the crowbar up, and then you pick it up and hit a head crab. It's like, no, we're not going to do that.
It's almost like a wink and a nudge
Yep.
instead of like a hey, here it is.
Yep. 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 And that's, I think that connects more with people, um, because it's like concept records. If you know that a record is a concept record, you can choose to dive deeper into it, and experience the story and figure out the lore. But I also want the concept record or the song that we've written to not need that in order to appreciate it, right? That you should still be able to appreciate the record even if you don't know it's a concept record. You should still be able to appreciate the song even if you don't know if it's about Final Fantasy VI or God of War or whatever. So
It totally makes sense. And I feel like kind of a cool thing with that nowadays too, like digging into the lore of a concept record is bands have access to things like you'll see bands nowadays do like a tie-in comic book or something like
yep,
that
yep.
will dive into the lore. And I feel like that's kind of a really cool element that we're seeing more and more become more and more prevalent in the scene. But so we talked a lot about your band, and we've alluded to this a few times. Like I said, I'm wearing the shirt. You're still recovering from it. You still have work to do. Mad with Power. For those that don't know, you're missing out. If you're a
Yeah.
gamer, if you're a metal fan, if you just like live music, there is no better just mixture of all of that into one big jar and awesome like-minded people and an awesome community. So just tell us a little bit, and you alluded to this a little bit on stage in Madison over the weekend, but just tell us a little bit about the concept of how Mad with Power came and how the gaming tie-in came in with the music festival.
Yeah, we so when Lords of the Trident was, out and gigging and we were, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. We've been around for a while. We had a lot of run-ins with music festivals where the promoters would straight up lie to us and would do just really not wonderful things. And I'll be clear, like, we're not the only band that's experiencing this. This is unfortunately a trope of the music industry and something that is very true, that like there's a lot of sleaze bag promoters out there. One of the biggest power metal festivals in the US booked us for 3 years in a row and then forgot to put us on the lineup, or told us our spot got bought out from under us when that wasn't true. And then the booker would come back to us and ask for 15 grand in order for us to have a spot
Oh my
on his
God.
festival. So it was stuff like that. And I as a Midwestern person, and as someone who is sort of raised Midwestern nice, I wanted to believe that we could make the industry better in a way that, like, when a festival says something and they promise you something, they follow through on that promise. Regardless of the financial impact of that promise. Because it's just like that's just the right thing to do. If you promise something, you do it. And so I got fed up with these. It was a number of different promoters, but one very specific one. um I got fed up with them feeding me half truths and lies and trying to get bribes out of me and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, it's clear to me that they're not really interested in Lords of the Trident. So I'm going to make my own festival, and it's going to be better because it'll have arcade games and pinball. And I'm going to build this festival slowly and specifically to essentially, like, suck fans away from the other festivals. Make this the bigger festival, and have the underlying idea of the festival to be a place where people can come and feel comfortable being themselves and just be nice to each other. My aspect of going to music festivals as a musician, right? I view live music and I view festivals way differently than like a music fan. I'm always in analytic mode. I can never really just like relax and get caught up in the music. And so I envy that in a lot of the people who come to the festivals where they can just like let loose and it's a cathartic experience. For me, the main reason I would always go to these festivals is for like a family reunion. I'd have an opportunity once a year or twice a year if I'm lucky to see people in the flesh that I've only met online or only chatted with online, and like get a vibe for these people and become closer friends with them. And so when I built Mad with Power, I built it around the idea of it is like a family reunion. It's a coming together of friends and people, and people who want to become friends, right?
Yes.
To get them all in one space and to get them talking and interacting with each other and making new friends. Oh, and there's music too. Like that's kind of like the general output. So a lot of the stuff that we did in the early days and a lot of stuff that carried over to the later days, where it was all built on removing the BS from the festival experience, right? So the first 7 year, this is six. We had a year of COVID, so it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really count. The first 5 festivals we threw, we coded our own ticketing system so that we
Wow.
didn't have to use Ticketmaster, and we charged 0 fees, and we just ate the credit card fees and the PayPal fees. We ate that ourselves. So when somebody paid $25, they paid $25, and that's all they paid. They didn't pay any extra fees whatsoever. When we moved into this bigger venue for this year, we were unfortunately obliged to use Ticketmaster
Mhm.
because of the contracts that were in place. However, we were the first and only festival in the United States to take on Ticketmaster and say, we will use you if you tell us the final price, including all of the fees that you're going to charge. So we put that on the website so that when people come to the checkout, they don't think they're paying $75 and they end up paying like 125. Like
Right.
that's bullshit. We don't want that. And to my knowledge, we were the only festival to ever do this. And 3 months after we implemented this, Congress put through a law saying that Ticketmaster has to show the final price, including the fees on the website. So somebody in Congress must be a Lords of the Trident fan, I think. Um, but there's additional things that we did. We added a dinner break. We threw in the games, and we threw in activities outside of the festival, and in addition to the festival, so that if somebody wanted to, if they needed a break, or if maybe this particular band wasn't their cup of tea, they could go play pinball. They could go play arcade games. They could go, make friends with people and challenge them to a game of Street Fighter or something like that. You know, the whole aspect of the fest is creating opportunities to make friends and bring people together, and and to just grow the metal community from the fan. That's from the fan side, right? From the band side, the secret evil plan that I put together from the band side is kind of roughly the same. I thought, if I could get all of these mid-tier bands, because there's not a lot of power metal in the US, if I could
Right.
get them all in a room, and I could get that, and I could be like, now kiss, if I could get them to be friends with each other, um, and talk face to face and get a vibe for a person, then A, they could make a lot of friends really fast. B, the next time that any one of these bands go on tour, they now have a Rolodex of like 12 bands that they can hit up, because they're like, oh, Ty's cool. Cam from Seven Kingdoms is cool. Basil from Power Glove is cool. Like I've hung with these dudes. We've played games. We've hung out. It was a cool time. They were all chill. You feel a lot more comfortable when you meet somebody in person, like asking them to go on a 2 week tour where you're sharing a van, right?
True.
You
Tight
kind of like
quarters.
you kind of understand more about a person when you meet them in person. So the whole idea was, I'm going to bring all these bands together, and they're all going to be friends, and then that strengthens the community of power metal, because, like I said, there's not a lot of power metal in the U.S., but if a young person starting up a band looks out and sees like, oh shit, Lords of the Trident is like best friends with Seven Kingdoms, and Seven Kingdoms is best friends with Unleash Your Archers, and Lords of the Trident is also friends with Unleash Your Archers, and Power Glove is friends with these guys, and it's like everybody's friends with each other. Everybody hangs, and like we all go to each other's streams, we all support each other's music, we're all reposting each other's links, we're all part of this like new wave of nice metal buds. Somebody might see that and they might say to themselves, I kind of want to be part of that too. It seems like a lot of fun. It seems like everybody's being like really cool and friendly and wholesome, and like that seems like a neat vibe. They might choose to start up a power metal band instead of starting up like a shitty death metal band. I mean, like, and and then that just strengthens everything, that just strengthens the scene more and more. So I'm hoping that Mad with Power, through the family reunion aspect of the fan side, and through like the you will be friends aspect of the band side, I'm hoping that we're like planting seeds that will help the community grow years down the road, in a very like in a very wholesome way.
That's awesome. And so I can't speak to the band side, but I can speak to the fan side. So this was my first Mad with Power. I say I recently moved back to the Midwest, but like you said, COVID just kind of like screwed everybody's time up.
Yeah.
And I'm out of the Chicago area. Madison's not a super far drive for me. So this was my first Mad with Power. And from the minute, and I got there ridiculously early, which I feel like is also a very Midwestern kind of trait.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
got there ridiculously early, standing in line. And I mean, just everybody that came up to get in line was just so friendly and so welcoming. And we had a great conversation. And that energy flowed into the building too. You know, when you're between bands, when the amazing crew is doing what they do and setting and striking these bands at light speed,
Mm-hmm.
and just making everybody sound amazing. You know, when you have that 20 minutes between sets, when you're grabbing something to eat, when you're playing pinball, everybody was just so friendly and so welcoming. It truly was, as a fan, a totally different, but in the best way possible type of concert experience. And so I'm so glad that your vision has, at least from the fan side, I can say, and it seems like the band side has definitely too. From the
Yeah.
fan side, I could say it has 1000% come to fruition. So it will not be my last.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. And I mean, like that's the sort of thing where you look out on that, and I think it's one of those things. It's like once you've experienced it, you say to yourself, like, couldn't all of the other concerts we go to, couldn't they be like this?
Right.
What is holding people back from bringing this level of like joy and friendship to a Gojira show, or something else? Like, why do we put up with the extra bullshit and the extra crap from these regular shows? I think if we can kind of infest that idea into the rest of the music industry, we could change things dramatically for the better, not just for the bands but for the fans too. And happy fans are fans that connect with the band more and buy more merch and give more support. It's like it's win-win. So I hope that we're, like I said, I hope we're planting seeds that make everything better down the road.
And I like you said with the Ticketmaster thing, I kind of hope that law gets called the Lords of the Trident law, because you guys, you were trailblazers there. You and look, as a fan, and I went to this festival, I bought my ticket. That price on the website is what got charged on my credit card, so
Yep.
it
Yep.
worked.
Yeah.
One last thing before I let you plug away and find out where everybody can keep up with all the awesome stuff you and your band and all of the awesome people behind Mad with Power do. One other, just because Man with Power wasn't cool enough, and it was pretty awesome already. You had a Mortal Kombat voice act. I mean, just tell me about that. And if you were in attendance, you saw the hype video for next year with the bands being released, and it was very Mortal Kombat themed. But how did this come about, and just how cool was that for you as a gamer?
Yeah. So, very funny story. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. I have been a gigantic fan of the series since Mortal Kombat 1. And my the guitarist, Brian the Baron, he and I go to Midwest Gaming Classic every year.
Awesome.
And that's, for those of you who don't know, who are listening, it's a big arcade pinball classic video game convention in Milwaukee. And for many years it was held in this smaller hotel. It's at a bigger convention center now. So I want to say it was maybe 5 years ago, something like that. Brian had gone a day early, and he was helping our friends in the Guys Games and Beer crew do they were doing like a video game Jeopardy or something like that, and he was providing the music while people were writing down their answers.
Oh my God, that's
So there
amazing.
was this guy at the bar who was, while he was playing the music, Brian was just playing like random stuff, and the guy was like, hey, do you know any REO Speedwagon? And Brian would, hey, do you know any Aerosmith? And Brian would, like Brian was in a cover band at the time, so he knew everything.
Oh, okay.
And so this guy was buying him drinks whenever he was getting something right. And he was, and he and Brian were drinking, and he finally stumped him on some rap song, that Brian never heard of. The next day I arrive at Midwest Gaming, and Brian's telling me about the escapades of the night before and how much fun they had, and this guy who was calling out these things, and we were playing games, we were playing pinball, we were going around playing arcade games, and then Brian looks at his watch, and he's like, oh, the Mortal Kombat actors from the actors who captured the mocap for the game, they're signing stuff in this one room in 5 minutes. I really want to see that. I'm like, oh, I'd love to. Oh my God, I'd love to see that. I'd love to meet these guys. So we walk down to this room, and there's a door. Brian walks up to the door and he freezes, and he looks, and he's like, his mouth opens like this, and then the biggest smile, he's like comes over his face. The guy who is buying him shots and calling out the names of the songs was Shang Tsung. and so he walks up to the table, and Dr. Philippon Shang Tsung was like, Brian,
They're all
and
buddies now.
oh my God, 8-year-old Brian just fainted in front of me. It was the coolest thing. And so yeah, so we hung out with him the rest of the weekend, and we just became fast friends. And he's been at every Mad with Power since Mad with Power 3. And he signs autographs and plays people in Mortal Kombat. And yeah, and he's Midway's obviously from Chicago, so there's a
Right.
lot of original actors are still in Chicago. And the next year, my intent for Mad with Power 7, since it's Mortal Kombat themed, is to get as many of the actors as possible. We already have obviously Shang Tsung's in. We've got Kung Lao, Jax, Kano, and Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Johnny Cage are all at this point like pretty much in the bag
That is
for next year.
amazing.
So we're trying to get a much bigger Mortal Kombat actor presence there, so we can do like a whole signing table and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the main idea, and Philip has been a really great friend. We've hung out with him a lot. We chatted with him a lot. He always crashes at Brian's house, which God, I mean, Brian has told me, he's just like, I can't, like if you would have told like 8-year-old me, like, yeah, Shang Tsung's gonna be like staying at your house every year, I would have been like, get the hell out of here.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but hey, weird things.
It's you just never know. You never
You
know
never
with
know. You never know.
and hey, the worst with situations like that, hey, the worst they can always do is just say no. But in your case, it worked out really, really awesomely.
Yeah, yeah,
And for those on video, Ty has his Mortal Kombat poster over his shoulder there on the back wall, so this is legit.
yeah.
So, Ty, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Like I mentioned to you when we were setting this up, this is the first of, I hope, many interviews I get to do with fellow artists of that game. I could not think of a better kickoff. Just tell people where they can connect with you, with Lords of the Trident, with Mad with Power. I know you have an awesome Patreon that has a Discord along with it. So plug away, my friend. Where can people keep up with you?
Yep. Best place is lordsofthetrident.com. Pretty much all the links are there. Mad with Power Fest is at madwithpowerfest.com. And as you alluded to, we actually are the #1 most supported independent power metal band on Patreon. And you can check us out at patreon.com/Lords of the Trident. We do all sorts of Patreon exclusive stuff. We do, Patreon exclusive merch, shirts, pins, patches, all sorts of crazy stuff. And we're always dropping like sneak peeks and stuff like that. So if you want to support the band, best way to do it is through Patreon. Even just signing up at a dollar tier gets you a ton of extras, and it helps out us directly because all that money comes directly to us. It's the #1 like driver of the band at this point. So yeah, patreon.com/Lords of the Trident. The other place that I'd push people to is our YouTube page, youtube.com/Lords of the Trident. We're coming out with new videos all the time, and we're going to be dropping a lot of Mad with Power videos probably over the next 3 months. We're probably going to be dropping something every week. So subscribe on there and keep following us, and But we're if you just type Lords of the Trident into Google, we're basically the first 50 pages. Then it starts to get weird. So keeping that first 50 and you're good.
Yeah, just don't go past that 50. And one awesome thing I will say too about your Patreon that I massively appreciate, because I'm still that person that buys physical music. I'm sure you're the same way. I'm sure your bandmates are the same way. Um, and it's such an affordable price. They will ship a physical piece of music of everything they do to your
Yep.
doorstep.
Yep.
And like I'm the guy that still tries to go to record stores and buy CDs and buy vinyl, and just like my basement just has crates and crates of vinyl, and I have no intention of stopping.
Yeah. Anytime we ever come out with a CD, the Patreon backers automatically get it shipped to them. So it's great.
Awesome. Well, Ty, thank you so much for the time. If you're not convinced to go to Mad with Power, I don't know what else we can tell you. It's just good people, good music, and just a good time. So thank you again, Ty, and make sure to check them out at the links listed below.